Good morning. I want to begin by expressing my deep appreciation to your pastor, Clay Andrew, for his kind invitation to come to spend these couple of days with you. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to work with my good friend Christina Gonzalez in co-leading the workshop on theology and emotional intelligence yesterday, and also to worship with you this morning and sharing the message with you. Thank you to your in-between pastor, Gwen Drake, and your lay leader, Sarah Richard, for their kind hospitality and for taking care of all the logistics for my presence with you. Let us pray. Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Like many of you, my heart skipped a beat this morning when I woke up to the news of another mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio, costing the lives of 9 people and injuring 26 others. This shooting occurred less than 13 hours of another massacre yesterday that happened in a Walnut shopping center in the border town of El Paso, Texas. As a result, 20 innocent lives were taken and another 26 were injured. The suspect in the El Paso shooting who has been taken into custody is a 21-year-old white man from Allen, a suburb of Dallas, more than 650 miles away from El Paso, who drove a long distance to commit this heinous hate crime. According to the El Paso Police Chief Greg Allen, the police right now have a manifesto from this individual that indicates to some degree a nexus to a potential hate crime. The CNN News report mentioned that the suspect's manifesto is filled with white nationalist language and racist hatred toward immigrants and Latinos, blaming immigrants and first-generation Americans for taking away jobs. In addition, the alleged killer cites a fear that an influential Hispanic population in Texas will make the state a, quote, democratic stronghold which can lead to more immigration. A recent study by the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino, found that hate crimes across the U.S. have risen by 9% over last year, including against LGBTQIA people, Jews, and people of color. Last year's 9% rise marked the 5th consecutive increase in hate crimes and the steepest rise since 2015. The most common victims for hate crime reported to police in major cities in 2018 were LGBTQIA people, African Americans, and Jews. Jews were the direct target of half the biased extremist homicides in 2018, in the worst year ever for anti-Semitic killings in the United States. On October 27, 2018, many of you remember, while Shabbat morning services were being held, A gunman armed with an assault rifle and handguns went into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and opened fire, killing 11 people and injuring 6 others. It was the deadliest attack on a Jewish community in the United States. According to law enforcement, the suspect targeted Jews online and made anti-Semitic comments during the shooting. While receiving medical care, he told a SWAT officer that he wanted all Jews to die. Against the backdrop of these hate-filled killings, I want to reflect with all of you this morning on the text from Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 to 13. The book of Exodus is what I will refer to as a story of origin, a story of the formation of the people of God out of bondage. Exodus chapters 12 and 13 provides us with the first description of the Passover event, the event that God calls upon Israel to remember and to ritualize it in the formation of their corporate identity as a people of God who were delivered out of bondage. This identity formation story is recalled and remembered every year in the celebration of the Jewish Passover. The significance of this story extends to our Christian tradition in that we worship a God whose core character is to set people free from oppression, and that Jesus' identity as the Passover lamb is part of that redemptive story. As a part of the formation of the identity of a new people, this Passover story is embedded with communal and ethical insights. Jacqueline Lepsey, an Old Testament professor at Princeton Theological Seminary, notes that the text code reflects the deep biblical conviction that the good of the community as a whole must and should be intentionally cultivated. The emphasis in the Bible is on the responsibilities of members to the community's welfare, not in general on the rights of particular individuals. End of quote. This is a community event. Verse 4 tells us that if a family is too small and cannot afford to provide a lamb, then they can share it with a better off neighboring family, and that the lamb shall be divided proportionally to the number of persons present. In addition to teaching about communal sharing, the story also teaches against hoarding, which is very much a part of our Judeo-Christian ethical teaching. In verses 8 to 10, the people are instructed to only eat what they can that night, and not have any leftovers, but also to burn whatever is left in the morning. Jesus, in Luke chapter 12, in the parable of the rich man, likewise warns against building bigger and bigger barns to store and to hoard. Such communal and ethical teachings go against the grain of our individualistic and capitalistic social fabric. In our drive towards success, we are driven toward acquiring more for our individual selves, more money, more recognition, more satisfaction, more love, more information, more influence, more possessions, more security, more and more. we in turn lose sight of what it means to be in community and in communion with one another. Inasmuch as these positive insights help us to understand what was important for how the people of Israel shaped their communal identity, many readers have found the divine violence at the center of the Exodus story deeply troubling. It is one thing to see the Pharaoh acting violently against the Israelites in his oppression. Yet it is another to ask, why does God respond with violence as well? Dr. Lapsey has noted that this is not just a present-day concern, but troubling to early readers as well. She reminds us of a passage in the Talmud recounting, quote, God rebuking the angels in heaven because they wanted to sing hymns of praise while the Egyptians, who are also God's creatures, perish in the sea. Biblical writers and traditions seem to view Egypt with a love-hate relationship. On the one hand, biblical writers see Egypt as an enemy of the people, the oppressor from whom God had to deliver God's people. Prophets like Jeremiah and Ezekiel view Egypt as among the nations that God will bring judgment upon. On the other hand, Egypt is the place where the sons of Jacob sought relief from severe famine in their own land. Moreover, during the time of the Babylonian domination, Egypt was the place that Jeremiah was taken to by friends to escape the Babylonian captivity. Even in the New Testament, Egypt was the place the Holy Family escaped to from the murdering hands of Herod. Safwat Mazouk, an Egyptian Christian and Old Testament professor at Anabaptist Mennonite Baptist Biblical Seminary, has suggested that ancient Israel's thinking about Egypt is significantly shaped by Israel's own identity struggles. In such a process, Israelite thinkers and writers engage us in the othering of Egypt. Dr. Mazout argues that Israel turns Egypt into a monstrous other that must be demonized in order to distance itself from Egypt. What Egypt represents is what Israel does not want to be. The use of othering is oftentimes an attempt to create an in-group versus an out-group. It is meant to create a us against them mentality and social structure. In an essay entitled The Use of Othering in the Formation of a Nationalist Society, John Evans notes, quote, othering is a process that begins in institutions of power and filters down to the people. Indeed, it is a corporate xenophobia imposed upon the people of the nation through political rhetoric, the media, national historiography, and perpetuated through socialization. The process of othering serves two purposes. A, it serves to construct the self-identity of the nation, and B, it provides a scapegoat to the nation for its present and past troubles. End of quote. As an Asian American, I know something about being othered. Frank H. Wu, in his prize-winning volume entitled Yellow, Race in America Beyond Black and White, says, "Where are you from is a question I like answering. Where are you really from is a question I really hate answering." This is a sentiment shared widely by Asian Americans and beyond Asian Americans, whether or not they are first generation or fourth generation. In fact, in the experience of many Asian Americans, the adverb really is more often than not already embedded in the question, where are you from? Such questions, primarily from the dominant white society, in many ways define the Asian American experience. We are viewed as and related to as an other and cannot be real Americans. Over the course of Asian American history, Asian Americans have been stereotyped as perpetual foreigners, yellow peril, social pollutants, drug-using deviants, among others. It is an attempt to demonize the Asian American population. A couple of years ago, a TV reporter and anchor by the name of Heun took to Facebook to share her experience of being othered as a Korean American. A car making a turn screeched to a halt inches from her when she was crossing an intersection on foot. The driver apparently hadn't seen Han, and a dispute unfolded who had the right of way. Han said she had it. The driver disagreed. Then, taking off, the driver, who Han said was white, yelled, "This is America!" For Han, this was clearly an attempt to communicate to her that she is not an American and has no business being here. Many of us are aware that the rhetoric of othering has become even more pronounced. Anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric is all a part of the rhetoric of othering and is meant to create a us against them social fabric. The others are blamed for all the social ills. They must either be rid of or contained in an attempt to make America great again. President Trump's recent attack on the 4 congresswomen and telling them in a tweet to go back to the places they came from resonates with a lot of people of color. Go home are words that have a familiar and painful ring. Such rhetoric is an attempt to distinguish and separate groups of people from one another by race, ethnicity, culture, gender, sexuality, economic status, and national origins. Difference is magnified for the advantage of a dominant group. The same way that Israel struggled in creating its own national identity by othering Egypt, so too have our politicians engaged in othering groups of people in order to construct a more monolithic identity for the dominant group. Othering can have dire consequences and can end up in violence against people who are considered as the others. In the aftermath of Charlottesville Former Vice President Joe Biden wrote in a response in The Atlantic saying, quote, "If it wasn't clear before, it's clear now. We are living through a battle for the soul of the nation." He continues, "This is a moment for this nation to declare what the president can't with any clarity, consistency, or conviction. There is no place for these hate groups in America. Hatred of blacks, Jews, immigrants, all who are seen as the other, won't be accepted or tolerated or given safe harbor anywhere in this nation." End of quote. I'm reminded of the words of the hip-hop artist and poet Jalal Hyler, who says, "Fact, racially we are almost completely the same. As an anthropologist, we are all every people less than 0.1% different. Other 99.9% is what makes us humankind, but the human mind is a master at building barrier." End of quote. While the Exodus text reminds us of the insidiousness of othering, demonizing and distancing people from one another, I'm reminded of another story of a Passover meal in the New Testament. Jesus, knowing that his time is near, calls his disciples together for the Passover meal. Giving thanks, taking the bread, passing the cup to his disciples, Jesus says, "See, the one who betrays me is with me, and his hand is on the table." In so doing, Jesus creates a table of inclusion, not a table of exclusion and othering. He has an inkling that one of them is going to sell him out. Yet he decides not to exclude that person from table fellowship. He extends to Judas the same grace he would extend to all the other disciples. And so, as we come together to the Lord's table this morning, from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, gender, sexual identities, national origins, theological positions, but as a community of faith, let us come as human beings who are more alike than we are different. Let us come to celebrate our oneness in God, our Creator. Let us come othering no more. Let us be a part of bringing hope and healing to a divisive and broken world.